That was real climbing into the pulpit music, but I'm not going to climb into the pulpit because I'm only going to spend a very few minutes with you talking a little bit about what we're going to be doing after the service, because I hope many of you will be able to stay after church. Just stay in your seats. I'm afraid there's no coffee. Just stay in your seats for our annual parochial church meeting, which we have every year towards the end of April. And this year it happens, as I've already said, to coincide with Good Shepherd Sunday, a very happy coincidence, because it does mean that we are focusing really on who we are as a family, why we're here, who it is that calls us to be here. We're not just another company or charity reading through our accounts and assessing profit and loss for the year, but we're thinking about who it is that calls us into being as a community. Jesus Christ, the Good Shepherd. Now, this has been an extraordinary year. We're looking at the calendar year 2020 in our survey of the past year this year. And if you'd said at the beginning of 2020 what the year would be like, I don't think any of us would have believed the predictions. It's been extraordinary the way we've managed to cope, in which we've been flexible and we've learned to adjust to living at home, working from home, communicating by Zoom. Who had ever heard of that at the beginning of 2020? All the ways we've managed to adapt our worship. We never missed a Sunday worship throughout the year, but most of the time, of course, it was over screens rather than in person. And even today, of course, many of you are joining us by YouTube rather than in person in church. So we made many adjustments to our worship life. Pastoral care continued with people pulling together, looking out for one another, ringing people up, doing the shopping, checking on one another. Many of the bonds in local communities grew thicker throughout the year as we became more aware of our neighbors and particularly the vulnerable among us. So that was a great area of growth. I've been amazed at the way this community has stayed resilient, has looked for signs of hope. Rather than despairing and complaining, we've always kept our eye on the horizon, the end of the pandemic still ahead of us, but we're getting closer. The joy people have taken in being able to have vaccines and the wonderful human ingenuity that made those possible in such short order. So there have been many things that we've learned in the course of this past calendar year. We've missed a lot. We've missed touch. We've missed socializing. We've missed singing together, but we're so grateful that we've got our live music of such a high standard in this church that we can listen to. So a year like no other. And as we reflect on that, we also look forward to what we hope will be a return to more normal life in the coming year or two, but also looking forward to the great celebration lying ahead of us for 2022, our 150th anniversary of being open for worship as a church community. And I can tell you that countless hours have been going into preparing for this behind the scenes. You may not be fully aware of how many people are involved in drawing up plans for improving the building. We need to fit so much activity into this space. It feels big, but actually it's quite a small site. And it's not a matter of putting a quart into a pint pot. It's more like putting a gallon into a pint pot when you look at St. Mary's, because so much happens here. And Kellen in the office is like an air traffic controller, as she often says, sort of bringing the planes in and making sure that one group gets out before the next group comes in. Every inch of this building is in use most of the time. And we are delighted that that is so, but it really is complex, and particularly the provision for our ever-growing and ever more successful youth work has to be accommodated. So we have a lot of things being planned to be done to the building. Not everybody is going to like all of them, because there's no way we can satisfy everyone, but we're doing our very best to make a building which is going to be adequate for maybe not the next 150 years, but at least the next generation of activities in this church. And to go with that, of course, we have to raise money. And we've got, again, a number of people looking at lots of different avenues, trusts, at corporations, at all sorts of possibilities beyond the congregation and in the community, but also, of course, we'll have to raise some money among ourselves. But it's going to be, I promise you, a year ahead of enormous fun. We've got a curate who's an absolute whiz at thinking of really fun things to do, and I'm sure she's going to rope you all into them, and you are going to have, and we are all going to have, a wonderful year of enjoying ourselves as we get some of that work done. So there is a lot to look forward to in the coming year. It's a very significant year in our lives as a church. So I do hope that you will be able to stay. We won't keep you long. We don't want to give you lots of paperwork to pore over. The accounts and all the other things are on the website. You can read them at your leisure if you haven't done so already. But it's very important that we should be together to elect church wardens and PCC members for the coming year, and to take any questions or concerns that you want to bring to us at this time, to the governing body of this church, the PCC. So please stay and be part of that. And thank you all for being a part of this church family gathered round the Good Shepherd, who calls us by name and brings us here to serve him and follow him and serve this community. Amen.